On May 26, 1999, a team of Hong Kong detectives discovered a Hello Kitty mermaid doll while raiding an apartment in southern Kowloon. Suspicious of what was contained in the doll, the detectives stabbed the doll's head with an iron stick, and shockingly, blood started oozing out of it. The blood was from the decapitated head of 23-year-old Fan Mun Yi, who was kidnapped and viciously tortured for about a month before she sadly passed away. And the reason for all this, a debt of just $500. The presiding judge of the case was so appalled by the nature of the crimes that he would describe it in these words: "Never in Hong Kong in recent years has a court heard of such cruelty, depravity, callousness, brutality, violence, and viciousness." This is the infamous Hello Kitty murder case that happened in the bustling city of Hong Kong in 1999. Fan Mun Yi was born in 1976 in the city of Shenzhen, but was abandoned by her family when she was still a child. She grew up in an orphanage at Ma Tau Wai, an area inside of Kowloon City. At the tender age of 15, Fan was forced out into the world when she had to leave the orphanage due to the age restrictions there. As she had no money, Fan was forced to wander the streets and was homeless for a period. She started working as a street prostitute to get by. At this time, she also resorted to drugs and was addicted to them. In 1996, she met a fellow drug addict named Ng Chi Yuen, who was one of her clients. The two rented a house to live together and would eventually end up getting married. However, their marriage wasn't a smooth one, as neighbors would describe their relationship as abusive. They would regularly hear them fighting from their apartment, which would disturb their neighbors in their sleep at night. In November of 1998, she gave birth to their son, which gave Fan a much-needed wake-up call. She decided to quit drugs and prostitution and got a job as a nightclub hostess at an establishment called Empress Karaoke Club. However, this only made things hard for her, as the income wasn't enough for her to support herself and her family. While she was working at the nightclub, she became acquainted with a 33-year-old man named Chan Man Lok, who was working as a cashier at the same establishment. Chan was a member of the Wo Shing Wo triad and had a history of violent behavior and was charged with drug trafficking in 1991. Around this time, Fan had incurred a financial debt to Chan and had trouble repaying it. There were different versions of how Fan had accumulated this debt. In one version, Fan had stolen Chan's wallet and pocketed around 4,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is roughly $500. However, Chan quickly discovered his missing cash and found out that it was Fan who stole it. This was, of course, bad news, as Chan was a triad member and not to be messed with. Fan returned the stolen money to him, but Chan was not done yet. He further demanded that Fan had to pay him an additional fee of 10,000 Hong Kong dollars, or she would have to suffer the consequences. Of course, Fan did not have the money to pay him, so she asked for some time to get the sum. In another version, it is said that Fan bought drugs from Chan and incurred a debt of 4,000 Hong Kong dollars, but by the time Fan had paid the principal amount, the interest incurred had already raised the total debt amount to an exorbitant level which she could no longer repay. Regardless of which version is true, Chan was running out of patience in securing his debt from Fan. He instructed two of his triad followers, Leung Wai Lun and Leung Xing Cho, to kidnap Fan and force her to repay the debt. Chan's plan was to pimp her out and collect the earnings for himself. On March 17, 1999, the three men, along with Leung Xingcho's 14-year-old girlfriend at the time, Ah Fong, abducted Fan from her residence. Fan was staying at the Fu Yu section of Lai Yu estate at the time. The gang of four took Fan to an apartment on the third floor of number 31 Granville Road, located in Sim Sha Tsui of southern Kowloon. This is where the disgusting brutality and depravity of the four captors spiraled out of control. Over the course of the next 4 weeks, Fan would be helplessly subject to constant savage torture by her captors. On the first evening that Fan was kidnapped to the apartment, Leung Wai-lun would ask a terrified Fun why she did not repay the debts owed to Chan and had avoided their phone calls to her. When Fun didn't answer, Leung kicked her in the chest and she fell. He would proceed to viciously kick her more than 50 times, counting aloud each time he struck her, and even asking Fun which body part he should kick. Fun would repeatedly plead with her captors to stop, saying that if she was seen in public with these injuries, her son would be taken away from her by social services. On the second day, Leung Wai-lun and Leung Xing-cho would further torture Fun while their boss, Chan Man-lok, was asleep. They found some plastic drinking straws and bottles and burnt them with lighters until the plastic was so hot that it melted. They would then drip the molten plastic onto her feet and instructed Fun to smile or laugh as if she was enjoying it. But that wasn't enough for the two depraved individuals, as they burnt her feet directly with the lighter as well and poked the wounds with a dirty, sharp wooden stick. Ah Fong, the girlfriend of Leung Xing-cho, would later describe in court documents that the feet on Fun's skin completely disappearing in places, leaving blistering. That was not the end of this torture, however. The two Leungs added to the torture by applying chili oil, oyster sauce and other substances on her open wounds to make it even more painful, and also forced it into her mouth. Leung Xing-cho, who was still dissatisfied with the torture, then urinated directly into Fun's mouth, after which Leung Wai-lun joined in and they both forced Fun to eat feces. And finally, at the end of the excruciating torture, they poured cooking oil directly into her mouth, which she vomited out. This was only the second day, and I truly cannot imagine what Fun would have been thinking in that excruciating moment. Scabs would start to form around the wounds of Fun's feet due to the horrific burning she had suffered, and she would scratch at them due to the itch. Leung Wai-lun noticed this and wanted to stop her from doing so, and so with some elastic wires, he tied Fun's hands to an overhead rack. She was left and forced to remain standing for hours with her hands overhead, which would cause her to become very exhausted. Due to the weight of her body being supported by her tied hands, her hands became severely swollen. On another day, Chan noticed Fun had been scratching on the scabs on her wounds again. He forced her to spread her fingers on the floor and then used a water pipe to brutally strike her hands over and over. Ah Fong, who was also present at the time, left the room where this was happening, and after some time went back into the room and saw that Fun's entire face was bloody and swollen. Chan and his underlings would continue their beatings and torture of Fun throughout a whole 29 days, from the day she was abducted on March 17th until April 14th of 1999, when it was believed that Fun eventually succumbed to her injuries. On April 14th, Ah Fong noticed that Fun was unresponsive. Her heart had stopped and her limbs had also turned stiff. She informed the group of this and they realized that Fun had passed on. It was then they decided the best way to get rid of the evidence of their crime was to dismember her body. They moved her body into a bathtub, sawed the bones, placed her internal organs into bags, and boiled all of it in scalding hot water. Chan would also boil her decapitated head on a kerosene stove. It is claimed that he pulled out the head from the pot and then said, "Be obedient and don't move. I'll doll you up." Out of pure coincidence, while the group was dismembering the body, a completely unrelated report was made on a neighbor living next to them, and police had arrived to investigate that case. The group did not know this and thought that the police were coming for them. They panicked and quickly threw some bags which contained body parts out of the window. They also cut open a Hello Kitty mermaid doll that was lying around, took out the cotton, stuffed the boiled head in, and sewed the doll up. The apartment unit was thereafter left vacated. It was alleged that neighbors had started smelling a foul odor coming from the unit and had called the police to investigate. However, police would presume the odor to just be the stench coming from garbage and did not investigate further. On May 24th of 1999, around a month after Fun's brutal murder, Ah Fong, who at the time was at Ma Tau Wai Girls' Home, a juvenile detention center, told a social worker that she had been having regular nightmares. These nightmares include a female ghost haunting her and demanding Ah Fong to return her head. Ah Fong would then confess the events of the murder to the social worker, of which the social worker would then report this to the police. Ah Fong became an important police witness to this case and would be granted immunity if she cooperated. 2 days later, Yau Tsim Mong District Police would raid the apartment at number 31 Granville Road. It was said that Ah Fong, who led police to the crime scene, was too terrified to go anywhere near the apartment and stayed downstairs. It was there that police would find the Hello Kitty mermaid doll. While searching the apartment, police also found 2 pots that smelled of rotting corpses surrounded by dead insects. The forensic team would later retrieve the decapitated head from inside the Hello Kitty doll, which was covered with worms. Due to the destruction of skin and hair tissue from the head, it was concluded that DNA was impossible to be retrieved from it. Other important evidence recovered from the scene were a refrigerator, a hammer, and a clay pot that police believed was used for boiling human remains. Police were also able to recover a plastic bag containing the decomposed heart, lungs, liver, and intestines of the victim on the first-floor canopy. Unfortunately, nothing further was found, besides a single tooth. One day after discovering the crime, on May 27, 1999, police, along with a SWAT team, arrested Chan, who was hiding at his friend's place in the Kwai Chung district of Hong Kong. When he was arrested, Chan was cooking together with his wife. On the very next day, Leung Shing Cho voluntarily surrendered himself to the police. The last of the gang, Leung Wai Lun, had seen reports of police discovering the murder in the newspaper and had preemptively fled from Hong Kong to Guangxi. With information about this, the Hong Kong police cooperated with Interpol and public security agencies in mainland China to assist in the capture of Leung. It wasn't until a year after, on February 14th of 2000, that Leung was detained by police for failing to produce identification documents. This was a completely chance encounter, as the police who detained him were actually performing other duties when they came across Leung. He was promptly deported back to Hong Kong for the trial. The murder trial began on October 9th, 2000, and prosecutors had to warn the jury to be mentally prepared for the gruesome nature of this case. During witness interrogations, police had to bring in various exhibits, including the Hello Kitty mermaid doll, Fun's skull, the refrigerator where the body was kept, and the clay pot used for boiling the remains. It was said that this caused the courtroom to smell of rotting corpses. Ah Fong, who was Leung Shing Cho's girlfriend, was called as a witness to testify during the trial and revealed many of the gruesome details in this case. The main contention during the trial was whether Fun was murdered or if she had died from a drug overdose. The defense alleged that Fun overdosed on methamphetamine and died as a result of that. The prosecution argued that this was just hearsay evidence from the defense and did not need to be accepted by the jury. Finally, on November 21st of 2000, a verdict was reached, and the jury found all 3 men guilty of manslaughter. Unfortunately, the jury ruled that the evidence presented were insufficient to show the true cause of death for Fun, and therefore could not find the men guilty of murder. Justice Peter Nguyen would impose the harshest possible sentence for the 3 men, and sentenced all 3 to life imprisonment. He would comment that the 3 had severe mental abnormalities, sexual perversion tendencies, mental instabilities, and displayed a complete lack of morality. As such, they would pose a serious danger to the public and would therefore meet the conditions of life imprisonment. The 3 men would appeal this judgment, but only Leung Shing Cho's appeal was successful, and the sentence for him was changed to 18 years in prison. He was released in April of 2014, but once again found himself in prison for indecent assault on a girl in January of 2022. The gruesome Hello Kitty murder is still talked about to this day and has been adapted into many Chinese movies and TV shows. People who have lived at the same apartment block where the murder took place have reported hearing a woman crying at night. A family living on the 4th floor moved out of the building after reportedly seeing a female ghost. A patron at a bar opposite of the building claimed to have seen a woman's head staring at her from the apartment unit.